What's up, everybody? Dr. Lance Robbins here with iTooth Family Dentistry. Welcome to another episode of Fireplace Fridays and part 4 of You Deserve a Digital Experience, where we're going to talk about surgically guided implant placement. I know the word surgical can cause some concern, as it typically involves cutting of tissue, and that is involved with difficult extractions or extensive bone grafting. But the process I'm going to show you today typically involves a tissue punch, which is a circular blade, puts a little hole in the soft tissue for us to the bone. We remove that tissue and then place the implant from there. In the last 2 episodes, we've talked about the CEREC machine, and that is involved here as well. We will take a scan of the mouth, or a digital impression. We will design the tooth that we want to see placed in the mouth at the end of this process, so that we know what the angles are and the width and where it's going to line up with the other teeth. We then take that file and we marry it up with the 3D x-ray that we take. And so we can see exactly the angles of the implant and how it's going to relate to that final tooth that we put in the mouth. This is all done on the back side by me and our team that is involved with the CEREC scan and the x-rays. And once that's designed and placed at the proper angles and depth, we send that file back to the CEREC machine to design the surgical guide. And there we can put windows in it so we can ensure proper seating of that guide and make sure that there's no impingement or interferences with the seating of that guide, so that we get the proper placement. And then we send it to the mill and mill that guide, which takes about 45 minutes. Typical placement of an implant here for the patient, numb to done, is about 20 minutes or less. The first surgically guided implant that I placed were 2 implants on one patient, and the patient was numb to done in 25 minutes. So it's a very quick process on the day of the surgery. At iTooth, we use a surgical guide, not a surgical stent. A stent is designed off of a cast or a model, and that's it. It doesn't involve an x-ray. And so I think of a stent as a suggestion of where this implant should go, and it may or may not be completely in bone. A guide uses an x-ray as well, so that we can ensure the implant is placed completely in bone and to the proper depth that we need. If you're going to have an implant done, I would ensure that whoever is placing that implant is using a surgical guide, especially if it's in the smile zone or the cosmetic zone, so that you get the outcome that you desire. When we use a tissue punch, there's a lot less healing time involved. You may hear the term minimally invasive. When you don't have to raise a flap and expose the bone and place sutures, the healing time is cut way down and a lot less traumatic for the patient. Let me show you a couple of cases of what we can do in a single visit and how precisely we can place these implants. So this patient came to us with some concerns about their front teeth, and the one in question was visibly not appealing to her, had a lot of buildup material, and the back side of this tooth had fractured away. And the patient didn't want to leave without a tooth. And here's the x-ray. You can see the amount of decay, all the buildup material, root canal. So the game plan was to extract the tooth, place an implant, place a crown, so that the patient could leave with a tooth and be able to smile and function normally. So in the software, we are going to do a CEREC guide, and this is the seating area of that guide. Try to capture as much space as possible for good seating of that guide so it's stable during the implant placement. And then we design the guide, put some windows in here to ensure the proper seating and and placement of this implant. And here was the surgery portion. We removed the tooth, did some bone grafting, and placed some sutures to keep the tissue in place. That's the implant placement that day. And then this is a scan post that allows us to know exactly where this implant is in the bone so that we can put the crown into that implant in the proper position. Here's that scan with the scan body and the scan post. And here's the tooth that we designed to go in that day, and here it is. And this is how the patient left. Patient's still a little numb here, but got a tooth back in place and looks good. It flares just a little bit here. That's so we can keep it out of bite, not put pressure on that implant while it's healing and integrating with the bone. Another case here, you saw some of these pictures earlier in the video. Patient had some extensive decay and super eruption of this tooth. You can see some temporary filling material here in the x-ray. The decay was down to the bone, and all this is temporary fill material. We pulled the tooth, bone grafted, and let them heal for some time. And this was the day of placement. So we scan the arch to see or design the tooth that we want to place in here for restoring in the software here. And so we scan both arches, put them together, design our tooth, how we want it to look when we're done, and send this file to our 3D software and implant planning software. So this yellow here is the scan that you just saw from the CEREC machine. The blue is the tooth that was designed to help us place our implant exactly where it needs to go. And here's the other views of from the front, or the tangential view, and the cross-sectional view to make sure that we are where we want to be in the bone. Now, when we look at this bone, you may think, well, I'd maybe like this tipped back a little bit more. And I would agree. However, that doesn't allow me to restore this tooth the way I need to. If I want to do it with a screw and have it screw retained, that would bring my screw out the front of the tooth, and that's not very cosmetically pleasing. So when I design the tooth and know where it's going to be when it's restored, I can place this implant exactly where it should go. And this shows you that if I place this here, I can do this screw retained. And another view, I can drill down and all the way through the implant and make sure I'm all the way through bone, staying away from nerves and the adjacent teeth. And then I took away the CEREC scan here to show where this was planned to be placed. This is the guide tube or sleeve for the drills to guide this implant into the proper position. And this is the 3D model. We'll go back and check, and this is kind of cool because you can spin it all around and look at the implant from all directions. Then we send that file back to the CEREC machine to do our CEREC guide, and we define our seating area of that guide. And you can see this is where the implant was placed with that software. And here's the guide with our little windows, so I can make sure it's seated properly. Different view. And this is the guide in the block that's sent to the mill to be milled. And this is what that looks like in there. Acrylic block, the burrs, and that's what, this is not the same block, but this is what it looks like when we're done. Okay, so we talked about the tissue punch. That's done first. We take that little piece of tissue out of there. We place our guide with our sleeve. The burrs go through here at that proper angle and create the osteotomy or the hole for the implant. Place the implant. Place the cover screw. Patient's done. This is the 3D scan of that implant. This is a pano of that implant. You can see where this was planned and where it ended up. I apologize, the scale here is a little bit different, so they're off just a hair as far as size, but you can see where the placement is and where it should be, and that's exactly where it went. This is just one more case just to show you precision. This is where we planned that tooth to go. That's where it ended up. You can see them here side by side. I hope this information helped. If you like this video, press that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.